Oh, he's back out.
Yep, he's coming on.
Great, then you will have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Yep. We're going live stream, so be careful, guys.
There it is.
Good evening, all. Welcome to the September, July 23rd, 2024 Police Review Board monthly meeting. We call this meeting to order at 6:04 p.m. We have two members who are excused this evening, Mr. Kotler and Ms. Shields. Other than that, all members are here and welcome all. So that everybody has the agenda for this evening. It's a board business followed by the case reviews. And if anybody would like to make public comment, we will be received at the end of this meeting, and everybody has a 3-minute time limit. If you wish to speak at the end, please put it in the chat or comment section so that we see it. Again, welcome everybody. I have no report this evening, so I gotta pass the minutes. I'm very sorry. Everybody received their minutes from the June meeting? And if so, may I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Members,
second.
Thank you. Any corrections, any changes need to be made? Hearing none? All in favor for passing the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I have it. All right, again, being that I don't have a report this evening, I will pass it over to our executive director for her report. Ms. Pittenger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, members. It's nice to see everyone that's here. I don't have very much to report this month. Our intake continues. We have received a total of never mind that. I didn't add them up. Vaughn, sorry about that. I believe 104 complaints. Is that correct, Ms. Kirshner?
I believe it's 124.
124. My math is not so good, obviously, right? Okay. And of that, we have 4 executive director inquiries that have been opened so far since January. We opened one today. Actually, we opened 2 today. One, looking at the presence of city police officers at the Trump rally in Butler on the 13th. How did they get there? Did they have authorization to be there? And then the aftermath of that, there were some disciplinary actions taken. It made some news. There was some controversy attached to it. We would like to understand more fully why they were involved. Initially, they were apparently asked to escort the motorcade from the airport to the Butler site. But reportedly, there were at least 10 units there. And the same day we had here in the city of Pittsburgh proper, we had Mrs. Biden, Dr. Biden, the First Lady. And there was a limitation on our ability to provide the escort and that would have been appropriate for her visit here in the city because we had so many of our personnel outside of the city with the Trump rally. So there's a question about that as well. The city did reach out to ancillary law enforcement agencies, university, hospital, police, but it created a little bit of a stir, obviously, and 2 of our officers were injured, 4, I guess, all told. Not seriously, but they were injured. So we want to understand that whole situation a little bit better. And the other inquiry open today will be the incident that happened in Garfield. There was an officer-involved shooting there. Officers responded to a domestic call. And what we understand, and I do want to thank investigators Elwood and Edwards for going immediately to the scene and, determining what could be determined at that point. But apparently one of the individuals in the domestic left the residence, fired a shot at the officer shot back, and the individual was struck in the leg. From what our investigators observed at the scene, which was very early on, everything did appear to be done properly and within policy in terms of the aftermath, which would now be considered a critical incident because it was an officer-involved shooting. They did report back that Allegheny County will be leading the investigation into the incident, which is appropriate. And the City Bureau of Police will convene a critical incident review board meeting. The officer who was involved was placed on administrative leave immediately, which is standard protocol. And everything that happened at the scene, as our investigators observed, was within policy. But we'll keep an inquiry open to that so that we fully understand, again, what transpired and that everything was done properly. We've had 3 general service calls, and those are calls where people just need to be redirected, or they need some general information. It's not related to police conduct, but they just need some help. And so we provide whatever we can. And those calls go up and down over time. But so far, we've had 3 of those that Michelle has handled. We've had 11 out of jurisdiction calls. In those cases, Ms. Kirchner will direct the individuals to the appropriate authority. If it's another jurisdiction, she'll give them whatever information they would need to contact someone responsible for the local police department that is involved in the complaint that they called us about. And we've had one that has been out of time. So somebody ran out of time to file a complaint with us. We're still waiting for a number of individuals to take an action to convert a complaint into a sworn statement. And that, it takes me to what I had distributed to the members last night. And the board had a board development session last Thursday, and we had a lot of good discussion. And some of that we talked about in terms of what kind of data did we have related to complaints, allegations. And I did say that our database was quite agile and we can do a whole lot with it. And it occurred to me that, especially for members, that the information I distributed last night, which reflected the allegations received for 4 years, from 2020 through 2023. And that distribution of the nature of the allegations contained in the complaints that were received during that time frame, to give you an idea of what the context of those complaints that come into the office are, and in turn, what our investigators have to investigate, what the nature of the things that they have to look into. I also distributed for the last 7 months, well, I guess six and 3/4 months, this year's summary of allegations received. And again, from what I looked at quickly, this year is running pretty similar to prior years, those 4 years that we provided from 2020 through 2023. And it looks like they're running very closely to the same incidents of allegation occurring this year as we see in our experience of the prior years. And it's not unusual for the last, probably 15 years. The top 4 allegations, if you will, It's our conduct unbecoming, conduct toward the public, neglect of duty, and excessive force. Now, over the years, we have seen where excessive force and unbiased policing, they kind of go back and forth. But for this period, for both periods, including this year, use of force is back to a higher number than unbiased policing. So those four are the usual complaints. I say usual, it's just that they happen the most frequently. And those are, for the most part, the conduct unbecoming and the conduct toward the public, they are demeanor complaints. Their demeanor, they're the officer's personal demeanor, how they conduct him or her, themselves when they're dealing with the public. That's what gives rise to these conduct unbecoming and conduct toward the public complaints. And those are things that you can train, but it comes down to how is that behavior being monitored and what kind of redirection is being provided in the field. That's behavior that is entirely within the control of the individual officer. Neglect of duty, that is generally where people think an officer should do something, but it really isn't their duty to do it. And that's oftentimes resolved early on with the investigator having a discussion with the complainant about, well, this is why it was not outside of policy. They had no duty to do that. Yeah, you would think that common sense, or you would hope that they would do something, but they don't have a duty to do it. And so the neglect of duty, there's a lot of those kinds of the public's understanding of what an officer is supposed to do and when they don't do what they think they should do, that results in a complaint that they neglected their duty. And lastly, the use of force. Now, the city of Pittsburgh's Bureau of Police has resorted, they have a new way of looking at the use of force. It's a couple of years old, but there used to be an escalation kind of a graph that you could look at, and the officers were authorized to be one step ahead of whatever force they met. There is now a matrix of force, and that gives a little bit more leeway for discretion so that they're not stuck with, oh, well, I did this. The next thing I have to do now is this, and elevate the level of force being used. With the new way of their training and looking at the use of force, they have the ability to go back, to go use a lesser level of force, even if they started to use a higher level of force. We have that information that I can send out the matrix, and you'll get a better idea of how fluid now they can be with their decision making. And the intention is to provide the officers with the discretion that they may need to manage a situation without having to be locked into a rigid use of force structure that may or may not be appropriate to the circumstances. The matrix of force does allow for more flexibility in the levels of force that are used, at least the tactics that are used. And then when we go beyond those top four, get into biased policing, allegations of violations of investigative operations, handling of prisoners, arrests, patrol operations. And then we do break out use of force subcategories like taser and OC spray, pepper spray. And those, we haven't had a whole lot of them lately. In this year, I don't think we've had any actually. But for the 4 years prior in that data that we did provide to you, you can see where there's a few complaints about that, 13 complaints over 4 years for the, 11 complaints for taser over 4 years, 2 complaints for use of pepper spray. And those used to be really big complaints and big allegations. People had a lot of, over the years, it was not unusual for a taser or a pepper spray complaint to come in. And we see that that's diminished, that's dwindling. I don't have any reason to explain that. I don't know how to explain that. It's not unusual when a new tool comes on. When Taser first came in, and your predecessors issued a report on that back in 2004, related to the use of tasers, and then a couple years later revisited the use of tasers. But when it first became a tool for law enforcement, it was new, not only for the officers, but also for the public to receive it. So we saw a large number of complaints, but they have dwindled. I don't know if members have any questions about any of those, that material that I sent out last night. But this is the kind of thing we can drill down on in terms of nature of allegations. We can also drill down on individuals, complainants, witnesses, officers, anybody who's been involved in any kind of a complaint filed with us. That detail is readily available to us. So if you have any particular interest or questions about any of the more detailed, gross data kinds of things, just ask us, because we can probably pull it for you. When Michelle receives a new complaint, and this will go to something we talked about last Thursday, when the complaint gets entered into our database, if the subject officer was named in another case, or numerous cases, those cases will automatically populate in the new case, so that the investigator is able to look back and see, is this a kind of a pattern of behavior with this particular officer? Or was the officer subject in 1 out of 5 and the other 4, may have been a witness, or may have been some incidental in a CAD report or something of that nature. But if they've had any involvement in any other case that has come to us, that automatically is available to the investigator. That goes to the discussion we had about patterns and whether certain officers do or repeat. People complain about them repeatedly. And so once that happens, and also for complainants, if a complainant has filed with us on other occasions, as soon as their name goes in, we are informed immediately that they were involved in another case. Here's the information. That case also becomes available instantly to the investigator. So that if there is anything that has a cross appropriate information in it, it's immediately available. So it's very powerful, the database is. But as an investigative tool, it's proven it's reliable, it's credible, and we can do an awful lot with it. Very versatile. So the board did have a development.
Beth, I think somebody's hand was up, but I can't tell. It might be it.
Mr. Robinson.
I just wanted to vote, Ms. Bender, I just wanted to thank you and your team for pulling that together. I know we had asked about that last week, and paints a really interesting picture of the work that has been done over the years, and obviously the complaints that come in. I don't have any specific ask at this point, but knowing what you're able to do is going to be useful, I think. So I just wanted to thank you guys for putting that together.
You're welcome, and thank you, Mr. Robinson.
It was very informative. It was a good read. Thank you. Thanks, Mr.
Welcome.
Robinson.
That meeting, the session that we had, it was not a board meeting. It was an informational session, and it was an opportunity to provide the information necessary for members to educate themselves to the intricacies and nuances and the expectations of their role as a board member, but also some of the other areas that are either incidental or policy related, that how we interact with that kind of stuff. The board, when we talked about doing it, because it was very, there was never enough time, I guess. We kind of had consensus that we should do this on a quarterly basis. And I think we could ask Mr. Wright as our solicitor for some topical advice. Not advice, never mind. That's a dangerous word to use with a lawyer. I didn't mean it that way. I meant in terms of having a snippet. Maybe we do it as part of our regular meetings, or we reserve it for introductory purposes to a session that we do on a quarterly basis for the development. But we might want to consider building in maybe a 10 or 15-minute topical, quick, down and dirty look at something that Mr. Wright could provide, like a procedural matter or a civil rights issue, or the use of force, the principles of those things that would be a benefit for all of us, but would also be a benefit to the public at large if the public bothered to look at our meetings or look back at a YouTube replay. So I'll talk to Mr. Wright about that. We've done that in the past, where solicitors would do a short presentation on some topic that was relevant to the work that the board does. But we might want to put that into a routine. We'll talk about that, okay, Mr. Wright? And if you agree or you're comfortable doing that, we could just do like little quick glimpses of something, of a topic related to the work that the board does, or what's the distinction between, the use of force and excessive force, or overviews of the rules that apply to the use of force, things of that nature. They're technical, but
I think it's such a great idea. And I think when we go through the case distribution list, when you're looking at it and thinking it through, and if things pop out to you, write that stuff down. And I think that is just such a fantastic idea, because it will help everybody to issue spot, to read facts differently, to understand the nuances of all those issues as we go through it. And I think that would be incredibly beneficial. And to the public at large, to your point as well, if they want to look.
So if any members have any particular topical interests that you would like us to develop, just send them to me, send them by email. And Mr. Wright and I will get together and put something together so we can build into a regular presentation. Okay, we got that. I believe actually, one other thing. We were thinking perhaps that since we missed this summer going out into the community for a variety of reasons, that perhaps the board would like to have a meeting in public in September for your September member. You do not meet in August. You get your break, and we come back in September. And if you would like to hold a meeting out in the public, we can make that arrangement. If a particular location, we're going to confer with Sherry, Miss Bridget, who is our community liaison. She's been to a good idea about a location. The ones we typically use are senior centers, libraries, Kingsley Association. We've used Banksville Park. We've been in a variety of different places. But if you would like to be out physically in a neighborhood, then I would suggest we do it for September, because once we get beyond September, October is iffy, but then you start getting into bad weather. And you may want to continue to do it out in the public every meeting thereafter, but at least we could step out. And September is what I'm recommending. There are 4 of you. Is that a good idea?
Great idea. I think it's a great idea. Other members? I think that is a yes.
So yes for
Okay.
yeah, I'm on board.
All right. And let's see if we, maybe generate some folks coming to the meetings. I don't know if we get a whole lot of people here at on our social media, but get the word out and hopefully as Beth said, I mean, there's some senior centers, there's libraries, and then there's those community places that Sherry, who's out there all the time, could give us where people would like to see us.
And
Thank
she
you.
could also poll those community groups that she goes to regularly, and perhaps we could do something in partnership with one of them. Because a lot of those public safety committees do have an interest in what we do. It's just that, they're engaged, and we may be able to hook up with them, with one of them, and do a same night thing. We'll see, but we'll confer with Sherry, and we will just look forward to sending out detail about the September meeting out in the community at large.
Beth, I'm wondering if there's any community days in September, and maybe that might be a good time to, bring people in. I don't know the schedule of community days, but I think they sort of all end in August. I'm not absolutely sure though. But I'm sure we could check that out.
Do members have any questions for me?
It's Tuesday, July 23rd.
If not, that would conclude my offering for this evening's meeting, Dr. Gershio.
Sorry, guys. Alrighty, thank you, Ms. Pittenger. Is there any unfinished business that anybody would like to bring forward? I don't believe we have any old business. Does anybody have any new business for the good of the order? Hearing none, let's do the case reviews. And we have 4 that are being recommended for full investigation. It's case number 106-24, 105-24, 059-24, and 051-24. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, sir. Second?
I'm second.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Ayes have it. Motion approved. We have 3 for a 30-day extension of the full investigation, and that's number 067-24, 058-24, and the final one, 031-24. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Second?
I will
Thank you.
second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Are you guys getting echoing?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know what to do about that, but let me try this. All right, let's hope that took care of it. All right, we have 4 that we have unfounded. Case number 087-24ED, case 056-24, case 035-24, and the last one 020-24. Do I have a motion?
I make the motion.
Thank you. Second?
I will second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We have 2 cases that are unsustainable. Case number 029-24 and case 049-23. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Thank you. Second?
I will second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We have one other, and that's case number 136-23. As you can see, it's they're attempting to contact subject officer. So do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We have one case for suspension, and that's case number 017-24ED. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Prior to the vote, this quick discussion, any new information on this, or are we still just waiting?
I'm sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button. I think what we were trying to do was gather some information from the Office of Community Health and Wellness. Because as I mentioned in the last meeting, I believe it was, they've really stepped up and they're doing it, they're very busy. And we wanted to, I believe, Miss Edwards, is that where we were going to try to get in some, are you here?
She's not on, Beth.
Oh. But we were going to try to get some summary information to provide to you if this would be the kind of call they would go to or not, now that they have a pattern behind them and established work protocols. And I believe Nicole was going to get that information and wrap this case up. That was the focus when we didn't understand why. If you have this unit that's supposed to be responding to things, and you have someone who's in distress, and then she ends up, in the tragic outcome that we all know about, was there another resource available to the officers or not? Now we think there is, and it wasn't then. We wanted to tie up that case with this is how it would hopefully be prevented in the future with this unit, with the Office of Community Health and Wellness. We just talked about this at a staff meeting. I guess it was it last week, Stephanie?
Yes. Yes, it was.
Yeah. So this will be coming back to be closed in September.
Okay, thank you. You can
Okay.
proceed.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. That ends our case review for this evening. I do have an announcement before we go to public comment that, again, as a reminder, we do not have an August meeting, and our next meeting will be on Tuesday, September 24th. We'll probably have it as Zoom for people that can't make it. However, our hope is that we will be back out in the community. Any questions concerning that? So stay tuned for the place to be identified. Are there any, Stephanie, are there any comments? I don't see any, but I wasn't really watching.
No, the
No.
Ozarks they're not in attendance today.
Okay. All righty. So with no other business or comment, may I please have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, sir. Second?
Well, second.
Thank you, sir. All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion, I should say, discussion,
Yeah.
all in favor, aye.
Discussion on the close. I wonder about that one.
Yeah, I thought maybe you want to keep us another hour, so. Thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your summer.